Welcome back to Extravagant Fragrances. This is volume number 3 of our series of the sales course and starting a business. And in the last volume, we talked about a little bit about how to sell. I kind of referred you over to some training sales courses that I think would probably be the best investment you can make in your life when it comes down to learning how to sell. Because what I've done is you're the horse and I led you to the water, and now it's time for you to drink. And basically teaching you how to fish. Okay, so I kind of taught you how to fish. If you go and you make that step, you make that commitment, and start learning the courses that I mentioned in my last video. But what I wanted to mention, and this is going to kind of be a short volume, is about stimulating our economy here in the United States. I don't know what the economy is like in the other countries, but I can say here in the United States is the way our economy is right now. It's not the way it was, I'd say, like back in the 90s. Back in the 90s, you'd be able to go to a place, get a job. If it didn't work out, you're like, I'm leaving that place. I'm going to go get another job. Or somebody would fire you, right? You'd be like, so-and-so fired me. I'm just going to go get another job. We're not living in that kind of time anymore. Those golden days are gone. And they're not going to come back, okay? At least not anytime soon. So what you need to do is you need to get comfortable with learning how to sell. And the reason why I say that is because I talked to some guys. The way our economy is right now, it's suffering a little bit. But I talked to some guys who came from ruined economies. I'm talking, in Russia at the time, the Russian Soviet Union, their dollar crashed. Their economy came crashing down. And I had one friend of mine who was translating from another guy who was Russian. Okay, so he was speaking in Russian, and then my friend was sitting next to me and he was translating, and I started to ask questions. And I asked him, I said, hey, so-and-so. I said, when the economy crashed in Russia, I said, what did people do? So he spoke back in Russia, in the Russian language, to my friend, and relayed to my friend the message that, well, when the economy crashed, people started buying and selling. And he said, the ones that bought and sold, he said, they survived. He said, now when the winter hit, he said, the ones that did not buy and sell, he said, they died inside their houses. They froze to death. And this is what happened in Russia at the time. This is what I'm told. Then I kind of, I have kind of my circle of friends that, when we talk business and whatnot, and I referred it to another acquaintance of mine, another old friend of mine, who was an attorney, and I asked, and I relayed this information to him, and he told me, he said, oh yeah, he said, in Russia, he said, when their economy crashed at that time, he said people got real aggressive with selling. He said they really started to turn the sales wheels. So what I'm trying to say to you, dear viewers, is you need to understand where we're at. You need to understand the kind of time that we're in. And you need to get comfortable with knowing how to sell. And this is something I highly recommend. I don't care what your profession is. If you're a doctor, if you're a lawyer, if you're an engineer, you still need to know sales, because you obviously got your career, or you obviously got the position that you got by convincing your employer. And this is something that needs to be focused in on, is knowing how to sell. Because even if you're in a profession that makes you $300,000–400,000 a year or more, you need to be able to have that freedom to, if you want to have another stream of income, you need to be able to be versatile and be able to just switch on over to another area of business if you need to, if the time ever called for it. So this is one thing that I wanted to share from some of the conversations that I've had with people who came from crashed economies. And you know, the nice thing about sales is that there's no limit to how much money you can make. There's no cap, there's no ceiling on how much money you can make. I had another friend who, he didn't have a lot of education, and actually I had a couple friends like that, and these guys are making triple digits every year. And they said, well, I asked him, I said, well, why is it that you do what you do? He said, well, my one friend, he says, he's a general manager at a gym. He said, I don't know any job that would pay me more than what I make now. And this is why I do what I do. He's like, because basically he didn't have, you know, another profession that he could go to that was going to pay him more than what he was making. So that's the nice thing about sales, is there's no cap. You want to make $1 million, you can make $1 million. I just talked to a guy the other day who's already become a millionaire from selling body oils, selling door to door. So keep that in mind. You know, when you're trying to start a business, is know that this is one of the benefits of selling, is that there's no cap on how much you can make, and the time that we're in definitely calls for selling. But you need to know how to sell. I checked my last volume, and that volume is knowing how to sell, learning how to sell, and I also gave some references on where you can learn how to sell. In my last video, it's like 19 minutes long. You're just gonna have to watch through it to get that information. Until then, subscribe to my channel, like this video when you get a chance. Stay tuned for volume number 4 coming up. Thank you.